Number one on the list, if you have a track saw, it doesn't matter if it's a Craig, if it's a Win, DeWalt, Makita, Festool, doesn't matter. You got to check out these little covers that go over this port. This cutout is here so that you have access to be able to change the blade with that bolt on all track saws. But you got to check out these covers that go over that. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, these significantly improve dust collection. They come in various colors for various different track saws, as you see here. Like if you have a model track saw, they're probably available for you. I get mine from Woodworks on Etsy. Super fast shipping, and it's just, they fit perfect every time. I got one with my logo 731 on it as well as an anchor. They pop on and off very easily, so you can always get them off to change the blade, but I'm telling you, they will cut down on your dust that's coming off your saw significantly if you're using a dust extractor. Now, obviously, it's not gonna totally eliminate all the dust, but it does cut down on it quite significantly when you have the cover on. Here's some other clips from the previous tool cart build video that shows the exact same thing. You can see very little dust coming out of the saw when using the dust cover. This is one of my favorite accessories for the track saw that I've ever gotten. Here's a bonus for you. If your track saw has a cord, then you know how the cord and the hose get separated and they're tangled all together. Woodworks also sells these little hose clamps on his website that'll clamp over your hose, fit it perfectly, and it's gonna hold that cord in place. Put 3 or 4 or 5 of those down through there. That way they all stay together. And again, they're easily removable, so when you're through with your track saw, you can just take them right off. And another accessory he has is these little track inserts. These slip right onto whatever track you have. Just pick the correct model, tighten those down. What that's gonna do is prevent your hose or your wire from getting hung on the end of your track. It's also gonna prevent your hose and wire from getting torn up by the end of that track. Do some shopping there on Woodworks. He's got some really cool stuff. And again, the great thing about Woodworks is he has accessories for all track saws. Go check him out, link in the description. Number 2 on the list are the fast cap track racks. This has gotten my tracks out of my way. I put mine on the garage door, but you can mount them on any vertical surface. They also come with adapters so that you can mount them vertically. I've chosen to mount mine horizontally. But the way they work, super simple. You simply just set your track into that little groove and then twist this knob that's gonna lock it in place. I've raised and lowered my door more times than I can count, and they never move. A couple of people have suggested maybe turning these around so that your splinter guard isn't resting downward. The pressure's not on the splinter guard. I haven't seen any issues, but you can certainly flip them around and mount them the other way. It would be perfectly secure that way too. Those track racks work on a bunch of different brands of tracks, so go check them out. There's another option to these track racks if you're interested. There's a 3D printed version. I'll put this in the description below. A friend of mine, Woodworks here on YouTube, uses these and highly recommends them as well. And they work a little bit differently. Basically, you're just sliding them in, but they're still very good quality. If you're interested in supporting a small maker, you can pick these up. I'll link these below. Number 3 on the list, while the most expensive on this list, it is one that will save you more time than you can count if you have a track saw. Check this out. This is the TSO guide rail square. They have a couple of different versions of these, and they fit a variety of tracks depending on which model you choose. They have one that's specifically for Craig tracks. Then they have one that will work on Festool, Win, Makita, and Triton, I believe. You can check them out. Let me show you how easy this is to install and how it works. If you use a track saw, typically what you're gonna do, if we're cutting this sheet of plywood, we need to rip a 12-inch piece. We're gonna measure over and mark 12 inches. Then we go to the other side, measure over 12 inches and make a mark. Now we're going to set our track on that mark on the far side as well as the one on the near side. Line it up with your splinter groove back and forth and making sure everything's right. You move one in just like that. So you have to square it up and then you set your track on or track saw on, then you make your cut. With the TSO guide rail square, that far mark over there and the time it takes to line everything up is unnecessary. This is going to slip right into that T-track underneath. Then the spring clamp grabs the track and secures it, but it doesn't pull so much that it's going to damage the track. It will not damage the track. Now you've essentially got a 55-inch or however long your track is square. Now all I have to do is line up this end with that mark, put pressure on it, and it's square. I'm ready to cut. I don't have to measure down there. It's that fast. Another thing about these is it has a cutout so that it's not going to interfere with your track clamps if you have those. So you're able to secure your track to this after you get it square, and you don't have to worry about that getting in the way. Because of how this is designed, you can see a little gap there. It'll wiggle side to side when you put it on. It has this piece that goes right into that T-track. You're gonna slide it up, flush it up with that. Whenever you move this spring clamp into position, when it pulls against the track, it's pulling this ledge, which is perfectly square, to this ledge, or perfectly parallel, and there's no way it can be out of square. This thing is going to be perfectly square every time. Now this is the GRS 16 PE. They have a couple of different versions, one like this, and then one that only works on one side. The reason I chose this one specifically was it'll work on either side of the project you're working on. So this one's square to this side of the track. I can slide it down here, and now I can use it on this side as well. A lot of people prefer to use it on that side, especially on shorter runs, because when you're making your cuts, you can reach across and pull against the square itself while you're pushing this way. That way everything remains tight and flush to your project. I appreciate the simplicity of design and how easy this thing is to take on and off. And then you can just store it away in the toolbox or on the tool wall, wherever you keep yours. Number 4 on the list are track clamps. Now, Bessey makes some, Festool makes some, and Bessey and Festools are pretty much identical. I think they are identical. The Besseys are cheaper though, so if you don't have any track clamps, the Bessey would probably be the way I would suggest going. But Masca also makes some track clamps. Let me show you what they do and why you want to use them. Now, if you need to make a precision cut, you don't need to take any chances on this thing moving at all. You need a set of track clamps. 2 of them's fine. All you need is 2. The way these work is they do exactly just like that TSO square. It slides right into that T-track on the bottom, and then you're just gonna, right there where you need it, and then just, the reason I like these Festool, AKA Bessey clamps, is because you can just squeeze those and they're tight. That's all you gotta do. There's no wrenching down on those. Masca makes one that's very long, so you get more clamping capacity in these, and they work very similar. They're basically a ratcheting clamp. When it hits to where you want to clamp down on it, all you have to do is squeeze it, and then it's clamped down, and you hit that trigger and it comes loose again. Ideally, you want to clamp down both sides of your project so that nothing moves. Number 5 on the list are Rockler bench cookies. Even if you don't have a track saw, I would suggest picking up at least 8 of these things. I have about 12 or 16 of them, I think. I use them all the time for various different projects, but I love them for setting sheet goods up to cut on my workbench without worrying about cutting the workbench. And then even if you cut into these, they're just rubber and plastic, so it doesn't hurt your blade. What I like to do is support on each side of my workpiece and then make that cut. As long as you're mindful about where you're putting these, they work extremely well. That way when you make that cut, you don't have to worry about the piece moving, pinching, binding, and it just makes a better, cleaner cut. Now, a lot of people like to put down a foam board and make the cut on top of that. That's perfectly fine too. The reason I don't use that is because then I have to take and put it somewhere and it winds up behind all of those sheet goods when I'm ready to use it. Then I gotta go dig it out and it's just frustrating. So I would just much prefer to throw these bench cookies up there, make the cut, and then I can just put them back in the drawer. If you like this video, you gotta check out the Win versus Craig versus Festool video right there. Go watch that video where I compared all 3 of them and seen how they stacked up against each other. Click in the box to get you the big old virtual fist pump. Also, another one of my favorite videos right there.